Here we have a Taco GS 250 outrigger mount. Pretty common on a lot of boats. And we're gonna show you how to remove this outrigger mount today. We've got the port side out already. We're gonna remove this starboard and give you a step-by-step. This is a 2012 model boat. So 2012 model mount. Occasionally you'll see the month and year even there, 08, 12, I'm guessing. And these are sold as 1.5 inch diameter, but this is actually a little bit less. What happens with these mounts is when they were manufactured, this retention pin that holds the outrigger in was welded on. So when this assembly gets welded on, it distorts the tube inside. So it's not perfectly round once you get that far. So we've got a 1.46 inch sleeve that fits this much better than a 1.50 sleeve. The 1.50 sleeve won't get far enough in because it reaches this point where it's distorted by the welds. About 2019 or 2020, this was installed a different way by Taco, and we see it being a true 1.5 inch inside diameter from that point forward. So all these mounts have a standard bolt pattern. They're 3 inch by 5 inch, right here center to center. And you're gonna find either 1/4 20 or 5/16 18 thread bolts. And these happen to have 1/4 20. So you need a 7/16 wrench socket. If they were 5/16, you'd need a 1/2 inch. But all these 200 and 300 and 400 and the 500 series Taco mounts have got a handle here that's got to come off before this unit can come upwards out of the top to get uninstalled. The way that's done is you've got socket head screws here. You want to be really careful not to strip these out if there's any corrosion in between these stainless screws and this aluminum outrigger mount. We just did that with a 3mm hex key. And that mount comes out just like that. Same thing with the 370 and the 380 and the 500, which have the height being adjusted via a crank knob on the bottom rather than the manual adjustment on the top end, like these 250s and 270s and the 280s have. So these have got acorn nuts kind of locking in, giving it a little bit better aesthetic on the bottom end. So what we're gonna replace these with is a set of the new Taco 380 or 300s. These, instead of having a separate swing handle and crank handle, and instead of having something to adjust on top, everything happens on the bottom end with a single handle. And like I said, in a separate video, we'll show you all the functionality with that. But they're pretty cool in that you don't have to stand up on the gunnel to adjust your outriggers fully. These are 1.5 inch, and the retention system is in the same spot from a depth standpoint, but as you can see, they're ambidextrous, so they're coming in from the bottom rather than having something come in from one side or another. This is pretty smart, nice upgrade. Exact same mounting footprint, 3 inch by 5 inch on center, 3 inch OD here on this lower housing, so you need a 3 1/8 inch main hole in the top of the boat. So let's see how we're doing here. Backing plate comes off. In this case, there's no sealant, so it makes uninstall pretty easy. Let me show you what's going on the top side. So, looking like there's not much sealant going on there. Good and bad thing. In our case right now, it's a good thing. I'm gonna grab this heat gun. The trick with Outrigger mounts that we use pretty often is to run a heat gun on the top of an Outrigger mount to warm up the metal. And it's gonna get pretty much right past the point where you're able to touch this metal. What we're doing is we're gonna make this sealant that we can see up here. We're gonna make that sealant give up and allow this mount to break free from this fiberglass hardtop without damaging the hardtop. In cases where a manufacturer has used 5200, we really don't like to see that, but sometimes we find it, and the only way to get the 5200 free underneath that much surface area, this is about a 4 inch by 6 inch surface area here. The only way to get that to break free is to physically cut it. And even that is much easier when it's heated up. But with most sealants or bedding adhesives, like Life Caulk or 3M 4000, 3M 4200, it just takes a little bit of heat. And remember, metal is carrying heat, so it's a heat sink. You know, it's going to spread this heat out, so it takes a bit of time to heat this up to truly get the whole area warmed up. But once that sealant reaches about 200, 250 degrees, it dramatically weakens. You can already see that it's kind of giving up a little bit. But notice how he's heating the mount, he's heating the metal rather than the fiberglass. We don't want to heat that fiberglass. So when this thing breaks free, we want the sealant to remain stuck to the fiberglass. And we can get in there and kind of razor it or spray debond or other adhesive removers on it to remove it from the fiberglass at that point. So our goal right now is to remove the adhesive from the metal, and it gets much easier by simply heating up the metal. So what he's doing is putting a little bit of pressure on the mount, and you can actually see it give up once it's warm enough. You'll start seeing some movement. And we only want to go as hot as we need to go. Obviously, we don't want to damage the hardtop. We don't want to have to do gel coat repair. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but if you just take your time and you're smart about where you're applying force and where you're applying this heat, that adhesive is gonna suddenly just give up. Should have brought the laser thermometer to actually figure out the temperature of the aluminum here exactly whenever it gives up. But I'm gonna guess it's something in the 250 to 300 degree range. This is a 1500 watt heat gun cut all the way up on high. As you can see, it takes a bit of time. The reason for that is you're heating up a big chunk of metal, so the heat is just constantly dissipating. We could come in here at this point with a really thin putty knife and basically press in to the center from a corner while rocking the knife back and forth like this, and then working our way around and doing that. And I think this one's gonna come loose just when it reaches enough heat. The reason that I know that, one, we've done the other side already. Two, you can see movement already. Try to focus on these. Oh, there it went. So it just suddenly reached the temperature where it just gave up. So we've got sealant left everywhere, which is what we want to see. So we had the sealant fail rather than getting gel coat failure. That's it. Up and out. Our next video, we're going to put the new 300s in.